Today, we are going to talk about everything Super Bowl 59 from a game breakdown of just exactly how the Philadelphia Eagles dominated the Kansas City Chiefs, my thoughts on Jalen Hurts and the disrespect he took all season along with Nick Sirianni, and what is next for both of these teams. Let's get into today's podcast. All right, so the Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl 59 champions. I gave you guys my instant reaction as a fan last night. It's still honestly surreal. This is the best Philadelphia Eagles team that has ever existed. You could hear it in the voice a little bit still. I was going a bit crazy last night. I can't deny that, but we are still up here today to give you the Monday after pod, Monday, Wednesday, Friday podcast talking about mainly NFL, some NBA, maybe we'll sprinkle in a little baseball here and there, but today's pod is going to be exclusively NFL. Now, the game recap. Let's just start with this. The Philadelphia Eagles started the game with the ball. Immediately, I was like, no, I wanted the defense out there first. I didn't want Kansas City to have an opportunity to score in the last 2 minutes of the first half and then immediately get the ball in the second half. I hated giving the Chiefs that opportunity. We get the ball first, and the Eagles get to a fourth down and short situation. Jalen Hurts lobs up a beautiful sideline streak pass to A.J. Brown. It's a little bit of a ticky-tack offensive pass interference call. I'm starting to think, here we go. This is how this game is going to be officiated. Every little thing, again, in the moment of the game, everything is out the window. Everything logically that you think is out the window. I have never been a huge, the refs are helping the Chiefs guy. Obviously, I think that there is a little bit of favoritism in games at Arrowhead, and I think that's just the same for any home team. But in this moment, when I immediately saw this, everything in my brain flipped, and I was like, uh-oh, it's the Kansas City refs. I was fully well on that bandwagon, and I believed it. Now, Kansas City gets out there, immediately picks up a first down to Juju Smith-Schuster on the underneath route, and I'm like, fuck, we're in trouble. That was my immediate thought. I have to be honest with you guys. Then the Eagles showed some pressure, forced a punt, and I'm like, okay, reset. Both teams had the ball. Both teams punted the ball, a little feel out process. Let's see where we're at. And then something that made me feel, okay, this isn't going to be us versus the refs. The Dallas Goedert unnecessary roughness call. Was it a bad call? I think in a vacuum, yes. But I also think that it was a makeup call for the offensive pass interference on the play before. It got the Eagles essentially right back to where they were on the field before the OPI. And I was cool with it. Jalen Hurts then comes out and throws an absolute dot to Jahan Dotson down the sideline, seam route. Again, Jalen Hurts made some really, really excellent throws early on in this game, throughout the whole game, really. But you saw early on, he was locked in. That throw on the run to Devonta Smith to pick up the first down. The sideline ball to A.J. Brown. The sideline ball to Jahan Dotson here. Very quickly, it became apparent that Jalen Hurts was locked into this game. And we've seen Jalen Hurts before in a Super Bowl. It was the best game of his career, personally, despite the loss. 2 weeks ago in the NFC Championship, he played a fantastic game. Early on in this Super Bowl, we saw Jalen Hurts continuing to play really, really good football. Love him, hate him, respect him, disrespect him. There's no denying, in the big spots, Jalen Hurts shows up to play football. The dot to Dotson, he ends up being down at the 1. We get the tush-push touchdown, 7-0 Eagles. Kansas City now comes out, opportunity to respond. You think Mahomes and this crew aren't going to just, roll over lying down. There's going to be some fight from this team. The Eagles, again, generate pressure, and generate pressure with just 4. The Eagles didn't blitz once in this game, guys. This pressure all came while rushing 4. The Eagles were playing a high school coverage. Rush 4, 7 back, quarters defense. They just out-talented the Chiefs in this game. And we saw it early. I went back and watched the game again this morning. And watching the game back, knowing the outcome, in some ways, obviously, yes, it's not as exciting as watching the game, but you can keep an eye out for certain things. And very early on in this game, the Eagles were getting pressure the same way they got it later in the game. They just weren't converting to sacks immediately. So the Eagles get pressure, stall a Kansas City drive, a punt ensues. The Eagles get back out there. They're moving the ball. Jalen Hurts, though, on third down, throws a real questionable ball, picked off by Cook. I didn't love it. I thought the Eagles were in a spot on the field where it was an unnecessary risk. You could have gone up 2 scores. You don't want to make mistakes versus Kansas City. And in that moment, I thought, these are the mistakes that could separate us from being Super Bowl champions and Super Bowl runner-ups again. So, bad field position, though, for the Chiefs. The Eagles, again, get pressure, force a punt, get back out there, get a field goal, go up 10-0 in this game. The Eagles were getting backed up on every single field goal attempt. I don't know what their long snapper was specifically doing, but he was very clearly attempting to get the Chiefs to jump by kind of having just a weird, a false start. And it got called every time. And I don't really know what was happening, but Jake Elliott continued to bang field goals. I think we talked about this in the preview, but Jake Elliott inside of domes this year was way better than Jake Elliott outside of domes this year. So I kind of figured in New Orleans in the dome, Jake Elliott wasn't going to be too much of a factor in terms of a negative for the Eagles. And then we had the biggest drive of the game. So the Eagles are up 10-0 at this point. They've clearly looked like the better team, but Kansas City in every Super Bowl that they have won has had a 10-point deficit. They have come back from down double digits in every single Super Bowl they won. You saw everybody tweeting about it. Everybody was saying it. 10-0 Philly. Now the game officially starts. The Eagles, they blew a 10-point lead to Kansas City 2 years ago. It was 24-14 at halftime. So a 10-0 lead, nobody should have felt secure in the outcome of this game. What turned out to be, in my opinion, the biggest drive of the game then ensued. Patrick Mahomes gets sacked by Josh Sweat. The pocket collapses, Sweat gets an arm on him, wraps him up. 2nd and long. Jalix Hunt comes in, another sack. Back-to-back sacks for the Eagles. Jalix Hunt, rookie draft pick, shows up in this big spot, gets a sack. The next play, 3rd and long, got to make something happen. Mahomes rolls out. There's crossers. And then Cooper DeJean gets the pick 6. That was one of, if not the most important play of the game. That was a very, very big play. And I don't want to say that it felt like it was over, because 17-0 second quarter, it's not over. But in that moment, where the momentum was, watching Patrick Mahomes make not just a turnover-worthy play, but a massive mistake, and just not see Cooper DeJean lurking, and try and force that ball in there. I thought a lot was encapsulated in that play. 1, the Eagles' defense had put Patrick Mahomes in a position where he felt like he had to make a play, with the 2 sacks getting the constant pressure. 2, the Chiefs felt the need to roll Patrick Mahomes out because they didn't think he could have a clean pocket. 3, Patrick Mahomes clearly was feeling the pressure and clearly was getting nervous and anxious, being down just 10-0, but feeling the vibe of the game. Him out there on the field, he knew that he was going to have to make some crazy plays to win this game. You could tell by the way he played. And for the Eagles defense to bait him into it, get the interception, and return it all the way for a touchdown to now have a 3-score lead in the Super Bowl in the first half, all the momentum shifted Philly's way. In the moment, we didn't fully know it, but that was the sequence of the game. Josh Sweat sack, Jalix Hunt sack, Cooper DeJean pick 6. That right there was one of 2 daggers that closed this game. We then go to 2 stall-out drives, nothing really happening for both teams, still 17-0. The Chiefs get the ball around their own 10-yard line. We're looking at like 2 minutes-ish left in the half. And this is another turning point of the game. Because if the Chiefs drive down the field, get a touchdown, it's 17-7.5, they get the ball to open the second half. All of a sudden, before Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia offense get back on the field, it could be 17-14. Josh Sweat, again, drives Joe Thuney into Patrick Mahomes as Mahomes is releasing the ball, messes up his release. All-pro linebacker Zach Bond gets an interception in Chiefs territory. Huge. Another huge turning point in this game where the Philadelphia Eagles defense stepped up. Josh Sweat stepped up, made a massive play, throwing Joe Thuney, who is supposed to be at guard, but has to be at tackle due to the Chiefs' issues at left tackle. And, you ask any offensive lineman, what's the difference between playing guard and tackle? And they'll tell you, guards are smaller, arms not as long. That's why they don't play tackle. And the Chiefs had been lining up Joe Thuney, who is a guard, at tackle for weeks now. And it's playing with fire. And in this moment, it killed him. Because Thuney gets thrown into Mahomes. Mahomes, feeling the pressure, tries to get the ball out quick. Then his throw is altered. And Zach Bond makes a hell of a diving play to get the interception. And all of a sudden, it's 17-0. The Eagles are on like the Chiefs' 15-yard line. And they're about to potentially go up 24-0 at half. And then they do. A.J. Brown on a drag route, open, touchdown. And the crazy thing about this was A.J. Brown was just missed for a touchdown on the Eagles' previous drive. Now, I don't know if this is on Jalen, A.J., who had the miscommunication. But on third down, A.J. is running a streak up the sideline, has his man beat by a step. If Jalen lofts it up, it's going to be a touchdown. But Jalen throws it behind. I'm not sure if it's a bad throw from Jalen or if Jalen expected AJ to be running a comeback. But there was a miscommunication there. You saw AJ frustrated. You saw it on the sideline. A little bit of a frustration interaction with Sirianni. That, of course, as soon as Fox saw that, they had to just hammer that home. What's going on here on the Philly sideline with AJ Brown? The very next drive, drag route, touchdown, hits LeBron, equalizer. And we go into the half. The Eagles are up 24-0. Absolutely dominating this ball game. The Eagles are up 3 scores at this point, because if you go for 2 each time and you get it, you can get to 24. A.J. Brown has a touchdown. Jalen Hurts has a touchdown. The defense has a touchdown. Kansas City hasn't even made it to the Eagles side of the field. Travis Kelce doesn't have a catch. Xavier Worthy doesn't have a catch. The Chiefs have not been able to establish a lick of a run game. The Eagles constantly getting pressure with 4. And you could not have scripted a better first half if you were Philadelphia. Top to bottom, this was perfection for them in the first half. And I don't think anybody completely counted the Chiefs out of the game, but I do believe there was a real sense of this three-peat's in real jeopardy. The Eagles are outmanning, out-talenting, and outplaying Kansas City. And as an Eagles fan who was watching the game, I have to tell you, and this is respect to the Chiefs and Mahomes, I was very, job's not finished. We've played one half. They get the ball to open the second half. They go out there and score and get a 2-point conversion, and all of a sudden things could be very wonky. They were a couple of plays seriously from being back in the game. That is the nervousness. That is the worry that I gave myself. So we get out of the halftime, and out of the half, the Chiefs get out there on offense, and they immediately get Xavier Worthy a touch. I thought this was very smart. He has been, you could argue, their best weapon these playoffs. Travis Kelce had the big game versus Houston, but Worthy's been pretty consistent, and he had a monster game tonight statistically when it's all said and done. So they get him a touch, and they look like, okay, maybe Kansas City has figured something out here. Maybe they're going to be able to scheme some underneath routes and get some yak. Immediately then, back-to-back sacks again, and they force a punt. The Eagles get back out there on offense, and I thought in this second half, we really saw Jalen Hurts create with his legs. Picks up 2 massive runs here. Saquon had a run, resulted in a field goal. You could tell the Eagles were just playing a little conservative in this second half. It was very, don't make the turnover worthy play. Don't give the Chiefs life. Continue to take care of business. Take what we can get. We'll get points on the board. The defense is playing dominant. As an offense, let's just go out there, do our job, and not try to force anything. And that's the luxury of being up 24-0. You don't have to force things. A field goal, Eagles up 27-0. Chiefs get back out there. We're kind of halfway through the third quarter at this point, and you're down 27-0. So you're officially down 4 scores. You can't make that up in 3. And they're at midfield. They have about a 4th and 3. And it's kind of like, we got to go for it at this point if you're Kansas City. There's no more punting in this game. Maybe on like 4th and 20, sure, we could punt. But 4th and 3 at midfield, we can't punt that. We have to give Patrick Mahomes every opportunity. And even worse for Philly, Cooper DeJean suffered a lower leg injury and had to be removed from this game. So Avonte Maddox is in the game on 4th down. And he comes up with a massive tip, huge play. Shout out Maddox. I was shitting bricks when I saw him out there. Avonte Maddox has not been that great this year. The change for this Eagles defense of Maddox as the nickel to Cooper DeJean, that happened when they were 2-2. They lost 1 game from that point on, and it was the game Jalen Hurts got concussed. So I was shitting bricks. Mahomes clearly saw it and said, I'm going to throw right at that guy. And credit to Avonte Maddox. Comes up, makes a huge play on 4th down. And you start to think, all right, the Eagles are just going to give the ball to Saquon Barkley, run this clock out. Maybe Kansas City finds the end zone. Maybe they don't. Eagles come out, play action. Jalen Hurts unleashes, launches a beautiful deep ball to Devonta Smith right in the breadbasket. And the defender, Jalen Watson, played it beautifully. But Devonta Smith gets up there, gets the catch, and all of a sudden, in the Super Bowl, late in the third quarter, it is Eagles 34, Kansas City Chiefs 0. And I gotta be honest, at that moment, I knew it was over. That was the dagger of GG's. There's no coming back at this point. This game is absolutely over. And Jalen Hurts, again, the apology tour, the respect, it better be as loud as the disrespect. Because now we've talked about a massive throw to A.J. Brown that didn't count, that should have. A massive throw to Jahan Dotson. A great play to Goddard. A great back shoulder pass to A.J. Brown. And this massive throw to Devonta Smith. The throw and the run to Devonta Smith that set the tone on the first drive. Multiple great scrambles from Jalen Hurts. This was the best running game from Jalen Hurts since what? The last time they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, honestly. So, at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts did go and outplay Patrick Mahomes. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. So 34-0 Eagles. And then at that point, the Eagles started playing some pretty relaxed coverage, I would say. It was very much let's get to the end of this game. And apologies if you hear a plane or helicopter. That's on my end, not yours. So Worthy gets a touchdown, 34-6. They don't convert the 2-point conversion. Jalen has, again, some nice scrambles on the ensuing drive, gets the Eagles in field goal range, 37-6. Milton Williams comes in with a massive strip sack on Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Carter absolutely bulldozed Patrick Mahomes on that play. It really should have been hands to the face, unnecessary, whatever they wanted to call it. It wasn't. Patrick Mahomes got rocked on that play. Milton Williams, strip sack, forced fumble, fumble recovery on the same play. Jake Elliott field goal, 40-6. Eagles started playing some relaxed coverage, had some backups in. This was with 3 minutes to go in the game. The Chiefs ended up scoring twice in those last 3 minutes and made it 40-22 at the conclusion of this game. But the Philadelphia Eagles have won the Super Bowl. The Eagles have won 2 Super Bowls in the last 7 years. The Eagles are Super Bowl 59 champions. And this was a dominating effort from start to finish. While the final score will make it look closer than it was, everybody who watched the game knows this was complete belt to ass. Philadelphia absolutely spanked the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, as an Eagles fan, I'm going to take my victory lap here because I came up on this channel continuously with the mindset of being unbiased, with the mindset of, am I giving my Eagles too much credit? Is this just more the team that I want them to be than the team that they are? I don't know. And I continued to check myself all season, having them in S tier, listening nonstop to whether it's a podcast with 5 viewers or Colin Coward or Nick Wright or Stephen A. Smith or Shannon Sharp or whoever it was, get on their soapbox and say, the quarterback's not good enough, the head coach isn't good enough, this team won't win the Super Bowl. And for 2 weeks of Super Bowl predictions, Bill Simmons, Nick Wright, Colin Coward, John Middlecoff, whoever it is, Chiefs -1.5. That's the best bet. Chiefs -1.5. They're winning this game. You can't bet against Mahomes and Reed. And I came up here and I said to you guys in the predictions video, I'm looking at a team that has a better defense, the best defense in the NFL, mind you. I'm looking at a team that has a better offensive line. They're going to win in the trenches. It's a big man sport. I'm looking at a team with the best running back in football, who, if the Kansas City Chiefs so choose to focus in on him, the Eagles have the best wide receiver duo in football, a top 5 tight end in Dallas Goedert, and a top 10 quarterback in Jalen Hurts. That is what I said to you guys in the preview. I said I understand Kansas City is better in 2, maybe 3 spots. Quarterback, head coach, and maybe tight end. But honestly, after last night, I feel more confident than ever saying not tight end. But on a 53-man roster, Philly clears. If you put up their positional group battle, quarterback, Chiefs, running back, Eagles, wide receiver, Eagles, tight end, Eagles, O-line, Eagles, D-line, Eagles, linebacker, Eagles, cornerback, secondary, Eagles, head coach, Chiefs, coordinators, Eagles. You get 8-2. Guys, this is what I said. And I'm going to take the victory lap here. Because not only did I bet this team to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year, but before this game, I bet them -9.5. I altered it. Because I thought to myself, well, either Kansas City's going to win a game by 3 points like they always do, or what I thought was going to happen, the Eagles give a mud hole. Even in my predictions video, I tried to be cautious and predicted an 8-point win. But I bet -9.5. And that's on me for not willing to go 10 toes down, balls on the table and say it on here. But I could show the bet slip on Twitter for those who don't believe me. This was a massacre. This was a massacre. Let's talk about that Eagles D-line. Because while we're going to get to Jalen Hurts, we're going to get to Nick Sirianni, we're going to talk about Saquon Barkley, there's no doubt when you're up 40-6 in a Super Bowl with 3 minutes to go in the game, your defense, who had a pick six, that is the unit that won you this game. I mean, the Eagles played dominant as a team, but the Eagles won this game on the strength of the defense, and they won this game on the strength of a defensive line. And as much as we love the quarterback, football's still a big man sport. And the Eagles, their line, their trenches, pushed around Kansas City all night, and it dictated the outcome of this game. And we've seen Patrick Mahomes lose 2 Super Bowls now. And the method is clear. We saw what Tampa did, and we saw what Philly did. And it starts with consistently being able to win with 4. The Eagles' front 4 consistently beat up Kansas City's offensive line. And I think a lot plays into that. Truthfully, Vic Fangio, round of applause. Had to hear all week about how he's 0-8 against Patrick Mahomes. Round of applause. The Eagles' defensive line, yes, they consistently won with 4 guys out there, but the rotation of Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Jalix Hunt, Ajomo, Booker, Milton Williams. It's 9 guys. So the Eagles are so deep at defensive line that they're able to just keep rotating these excellent players out there, while Kansas City's keeping the same 5 on the O-line, and some of those guys are out of position. And the Eagles' D-line is consistently winning this. From the opening drive for Kansas City, pressure was there. Like I mentioned, the most important drive of this game, Josh Sweat sack, Jalix Hunt sack, Cooper DeJean pick 6. The DeJean pick 6 doesn't happen without the first 2 sacks. And putting Patrick in a spot where you feel like he has to make a superhero play. The Chiefs didn't run a play on the Eagles' side of the field in the first half, and it took deep into the third quarter for it to happen. This wasn't just the Eagles' defense played a good game. This wasn't even just a great game. This was pure domination for 3 quarters in 12 minutes. And then the backups got out there. The Eagles started playing lax coverage, and we got a score of 40-22. But again, anybody who watched it, that wasn't a 40-22 close game. That was 40-6. That was a beatdown. And Josh Sweat, mind you, had a case for Super Bowl MVP. I think Jalen deserved it, and that's where my vote went. But Josh Sweat, 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, tons of pressure. And again, on the 2 biggest drives in this game, the 2 biggest mistakes that the Eagles forced Patrick Mahomes into, Josh Sweat was massive. That sack, pick 6, the first sack is Josh Sweat. And then the next interception from Bond, Josh Sweat is the guy pushing Joe Thuney into Patrick Mahomes. It's not a sack. It's not a quarterback hit. But watch the play back. That's what happens. Josh Sweat is going into free agency right now. And I fucking love Sweat. Guy's a stud. He's about to make a lot of money off of that performance. And good for him. He could have been the MVP of a Super Bowl that featured Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown. And Josh Sweat was probably second in MVP races. The problem was the defense was so dominant top to bottom, they couldn't single out a guy to give it to. Was it Sweat? with the 2.5 sacks, the 6 tackles? Was it Milton Williams with the 2 sacks, the strip sack, the forced fumble, the fumble recovery? Is it Cooper DeJean with the pick 6? Is it Zach Bond with the 7 tackles and the interception? You couldn't name a guy on the defense. But the Philadelphia defense was so damn strong. And I want to give credit to the guys in the middle too. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Ajomo. Interior pressure. They made Patrick scramble to the outside where the edge was set by Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt. This was not just the edge rushers who got the sacks, but the interior line too. Jalen Carter didn't fill the stat sheet, but if you don't think he had an impact on this game, you weren't watching close enough. He absolutely cooked and absolutely destroyed. And for the Eagles, that D-line was great, but we got to call a spade here. Free agents, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, who's retiring, Milton Williams. Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, you could argue, were the 2 best players on the Eagles defensive line in that game last night, and they're both free agents. You know, keep an eye on Myles Garrett. Keep an eye on them bringing those guys back. I don't know how he's going to cook, how he will do what Howie does, but that D-line and that pressure that those guys caused, and that defense just as a whole, because behind them they have an all-pro linebacker in Zach Bond, a linebacker in Orion Burks, who, you know what, next man up mentality. Cooper DeJean on his 22nd birthday gets a pick 6. Quinyon Mitchell's a top 5 corner in the football sport right now. Darius Slay, vet of the game, got that ring, earned it. CJ Gardner-Johnson, an absolute dog, brings attitude and hustle to this team. Reed Blankenship, stud. Avonta Maddox, huge 4th down tip. Shout out the Eagles defense. Let's talk about my Super Bowl MVP, Jalen Hurts. Because I need the apologies to be as loud as the disrespect was. I do. Because Jalen Hurts, again, in the Super Bowl, outplayed Patrick Mahomes. I'll say that shit with my chest. The Kansas City Chiefs' game plan was to dare Jalen Hurts to beat them. And he did. And he cooked him. Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in this sport, and I will not hear otherwise. Show me Josh Allen's ring. Show me Lamar Jackson's ring. Show me Joe Burrow's ring. You can't. And I don't want to hear that those guys have to go through Patrick Mahomes, because you know what? So does Jalen Hurts. And he's 1-1 against him and has outplayed him twice. I will not hear otherwise. Anybody who has him outside the top 10, your list is fucking trash. Go back to the drawing board and try again. All those lists that I had to see with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold above this guy. No. Put some fucking respect on my quarterback's name. Jalen Hurts is an absolute dog. Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in this sport. Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl champion. Jalen Hurts is your Super Bowl MVP. And you know what? We're not going to get revisionist history here, because Kansas City is a great defense, and Steve Spagnuolo, myself included, everybody said, who would you want calling your defensive plays in the NFL right now in a big game? And he was the answer. Everyone said it. They're a top 5 defense in the sport, and Jalen Hurts made him look like fucking JV last night. Put some goddamn respect on my quarterback's name. Great throws all game long. First throw of the game on the run. Devonta Smith, sideline, dot. A.J. Brown down the sideline, 4th down, dot. Called back for shitty offensive pass interference call. Get back out there. Jahan Dotson down the sideline, dot. Dallas Goedert across the middle, dot. Hey, it's 27-0. Should we run the clock out? Nah. deep 46-yard touchdown Devonta Smith fucking dot. The scrambling in the big spots. Who was the leading rusher in this game? Jalen motherfucking Hurts. The guy showed up again in the biggest spot, and this time he won it. The three best games of Jalen Hurts' career: Super Bowl 57, Super Bowl 59, the NFC Championship this year. It's a wonder he signed to the Jordan brand. It's a wonder after the NFC Championship, his first text came from Michael Jordan and Derek Jeter. This man has the clutch gene. You cannot deny it. The leadership is there. And in his first 4 years as a starter, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win, 4 playoff appearances, 2 14-win seasons. The only other quarterbacks to have that in terms of 2 14-win seasons is Tom fucking Brady and Patrick fucking Mahomes since the year 2000. I don't want to hear in the comment section either that winning isn't a quarterback stat, because why then are we judging Mahomes versus Brady on Super Bowls on who wins the most? Why does every team that has an elite quarterback win the most? Yes, roster construction goes into it. And yes, the Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman built a fucking fantastic roster. But that fantastic roster starts with a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who makes $50 million a year. The guy is an absolute stud and deserves the respect he has earned after this game, and the fucking apologies better be as loud as the disrespect. If you don't have him in your top 10, I won't even look at the list, and he should be in your top 5. And yeah, we're going to make a quarterback tier list on this channel probably next week. But you better show Jalen some fucking respect, because he has earned it. And if you're still on the quarterbacks aren't, wins aren't a QB stat, all right, tell me why Nick Sirianni is the best coach in the NFL, or number 2 in your eyes then. Because I'm telling you right now, if you're not giving the credit to Jalen for wins, then it better be this head coach. Because he's got the highest winning percentage in the first 4 years ever. And 2 Super Bowls now. Super Bowl champion, Nick Sirianni. And again, I'm not going to act above it all. After last offseason, I was one of the people that said the Eagles should make a change because the guy can't call plays and is subject to consistently losing his offensive coordinator. And that could again be a problem if Kellen Moore takes this Saints job, by the way. Because that would mean 4th OC in 4 years. But, let's give Nick Sirianni his flowers for last night. Because you know what? In every single, including myself, team breakdown, head coaching advantage, everybody gave it to Andy Reid. And I think Reid deserves that respect. I'm not saying anybody was wrong for that. But Nick Sirianni's team came out more ready to play. They looked like they fucking wanted it more. They balled out like they wanted it more. The attitude, the aggression, the urgency, it was just all there. And when you compare coaching staffs as a whole, not just Nick versus Andy, I'm not sure the Eagles aren't better. Kellen Moore at OC called a hell of a game. Vic Fangio at defensive coordinator called a hell of a game, had a hell of a season. Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach. Go down the list. While maybe head coach Andy versus Nick, it's not a conversation. Entire coaching staff versus entire coaching staff, it fucking is. You have to give Nick Sirianni his flowers. Does he got an attitude? Yeah. Does he yell at the fans and it's a little cringy sometimes? Yeah. Is he one of those CEO head coaches who doesn't call plays on either side of the ball and you almost prefer it that way? Yeah. But you know what he is? A fucking winner. Again, hasn't missed the playoffs as head coach. Him and Jalen both. And I had to listen to quarterback's no good, head coach is no good. They're not going to win anything. And there will be haters still today that give all the credit in the world to only Howie Roseman and only the D-line. And they'll still try to take it away from Sirianni and Jalen. And if you wonder why, the day after my team won a Super Bowl, I'm so passionate beating the drum for them. It's because this has been a buildup all year of being told they're not good enough. I mean, again, I saw quarterback ranking lists that had Jalen Hurts outside the top 15. Had guys like Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, and Baker Mayfield above him. They're nice players, but stop it. Had Dak Prescott above him. What are we talking about? This is a guy who deserves to be in the conversations with Lamar, with Josh Allen, with Joe Burrow. I think Pat has solidified his spot at 1, and it would take a lot for somebody to pass him. But 2 is up for grabs. And I'm not even saying Jalen grabbed it. Josh just won MVP. Lamar's a 2-time MVP and an offense in his own right. But Jalen's a Super Bowl champ and a Super Bowl MVP. And none of those guys got that. Not one. I want to talk about Saquon Barkley too, a little bit here. The Saquon Barkley effect. So Kansas City was clearly not willing to let Saquon Barkley beat them in this game. But I think that their focus on Saquon became their demise. Their defense was very, very locked in on stopping the run. And it almost feels like that's all they prepared for. Did Kellen Moore give Spags the workaround? Maybe. Having Saquon Barkley was a massive difference to last Super Bowl. Because last Super Bowl, the Eagles had Miles Sanders, and I don't mean to throw shade at Miles, but he's not Saquon. And the Chiefs, when they slowed down the run, 1, the Eagles didn't uncommit to it, which is beautiful. 2, the Chiefs knew that they couldn't let up, or else Saquon would make them pay. While Saquon, his counting stats aren't going to look impressive from this game. He averaged like 2.5 yards per carry at 57 yards. If you didn't see his effect, watch the game back. Kansas City, the 7 guys in the box were staring and zoned into Saquon time after time. It's how Devonta Smith ended up behind that whole defense to make it 34-0. Saquon was absolutely a stud. And the selling out to stop him allowed for one-on-one matchups for these star wide receivers and star players. Trent McDuffie is a great corner. A.J. Brown's just bigger. And you can't fully make up for size when you're talking about a top 5 talent versus a top 5 talent. Jalen Watson's good. Devonta Smith won a Heisman for a reason. Dallas Goedert was wide open someplace. Same with Jahan Dotson. The Chiefs' defense was so locked in on Saquon Barkley in the run game that Jalen was able to pick them apart passing. Because they couldn't generate a pass rush either, mind you. Because if Saquon didn't run, they did drop back into coverage, and they were trying to generate their own pass rush with 4, but couldn't. I also, in a game where Saquon couldn't run, made himself a receiving threat, by the way. He led the team in receptions with 6. And he did total 97 yards on the day. And he laid some really excellent blocks. Saquon Barkley said this in his interview with Strahan, and I've just heard him kind of say it through other Eagles content, but it's not about the stats. It's about the win. Same thing that Jalen Hurts has said. That has been the team's mentality. Do what it takes to win the game. And I thought you saw it a lot in this game, and I thought you saw it with Saquon. So now that the Eagles did win, where do they rank all time? I think it's a fair conversation to have. Because in my opinion, this was 2014 Legion of Boom, 2013 Legion of Boom, the prime Seahawks versus the Broncos. Except in the last 3 minutes, the Eagles allowed 2 touchdowns when the game was already over. But that game was what, like 41-9, something along those lines? Somebody will tell me. This Eagles roster was top to bottom, no doubt the best in the NFL. In the NFC Championship, they scored 50 points and won by 20 plus. In the Super Bowl, they were up 40-6 with 3 minutes to go. This team was the best in football and left 0 doubts. And it's not to say that you can't say that about the last 3 Super Bowl champions. You can. Whoever wins the Super Bowl, I think that is the deserving team. But this is the best team of the 2020s. Give me this Eagles roster over last year's Chiefs, over the year before's Chiefs, and over the Rams. This is the best team of this decade so far. Now, we got 6 years left, so we'll see how it goes. But at this point in time, the way that I look at it, we're going to remember the 2024 Eagles, the way we remember the 2014 or 2013, or whichever year you want to call it, Seahawks. That was the best roster of the 2010s. They weren't the most dominant team of the entire decade in terms of Seattle, but you give me that year that Seattle won the Super Bowl over any other team. They're one bad play call away from being 2-time champs in that decade as well. And I think it's just being a consensus opinion. Can the Eagles become a dynasty? That was the talk about Seattle. Can Philly? Offensive core's under contract. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Saquon's got 2 years left still. Devonta Smith, Goddard, O-line's here to stay. The defense. Yeah, there's some free agents, man. Sweat, Milton Williams, Zach Bond. Zach Bond, I think, will get franchise tagged at the worst, by the way. But they got some young cores. Rookie cornerbacks. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Jalen Carter's young. Jordan Davis is youngish. Nolan Smith is young. They're going to be able to retain some guys. CJ's still under contract. Isaiah Rodgers is young. Keely Ringo is young. The Eagles, and my buddy Gage pointed this out to me. What they do so well is they draft a need a year or two before it's a need. Cam Jurgens, before Jason Kelce retired, was on the team. You know, Jalix Hunt, before they've moved on, potentially from Sweat, was on the team. They are really, really good at building out a roster. And I'll tell you what, there'll be a player in Myles Garrett as well. They'll have the money. They paid Bryce Huff. They overpaid him. You could send that contract back to Cleveland to make the salaries work. They already have money invested in an edge rusher. Plus, Sweat, free agent. Milton Williams, free agent. Do you trust Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith to step up and be the other edge rusher alongside Myles Garrett? Do you trust Ajomo and Thomas Booker to step up? Are you willing to go all in on Garrett? If not, do you just bring back this D-line? You know you could draft well. I do believe the Eagles have a making of a dynasty. I want to close this pod out talking about the Chiefs, and not in just a negative light here. What's next for Kansas City? I think it's a fair question to ask. Where do the Chiefs go from here? They were defending back-to-back Super Bowl champions, on the cusp of a three-peat, got the closest that any team has ever gotten, got to the big game, and got blown out. And really exposed for some weaknesses that they have. Where do they go from here? It's very clear to me that the direction for Kansas City has to be, let's get Patrick Mahomes the best offensive line we possibly can every single season. That should be priority one. Mahomes is under contract, and then the next investment of money should be offensive line, specifically tackle. Whether it's high draft capital investment or whether it's let's bring out the Brinks truck for somebody. Because the only 2 Super Bowls you've lost are the ones where Patrick didn't have any time to process, felt like he had to force things, and made some mistakes, and was getting sacked a ton. Was it 6 sacks in this game on 0 blitzes from Philly? That's a problem. Can Kansas City fix that? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team will be back in the Super Bowl one day. There's no doubt about it. I thought they missed Rashee Rice desperately in this game, because how many times did this team just need a guy in the slot to get them 5 to 7 yards? And nobody could get open. Because I promise you, people will say, why didn't the Chiefs just throw it short? Guys, it wasn't open. If it was open, I promise you Patrick would have seen it. I promise you. They were missing their 5 to 7 yard guy. It used to be Kelsey. He looked washed. At Father Time, it looked like this season, he absolutely punched Travis Kelsey right in the face. He's a shell of himself. It happens. You get older. He's an all-time great, maybe the greatest tight end of all time. But he's not a number 1 option on a Super Bowl team anymore. And I'm not even sure he's a number 2. Will he retire? Will he not retire? I don't know. I think he probably should, but I get it. If he doesn't want to leave with a job not finished and that being his last game, I get it. But the Kansas City Chiefs have to look in the mirror and have to think, we cannot go into next year relying on Travis Kelsey to be the guy that Patrick throws to in our offense. He could be a guy, but not the guy. I think Rashee Rice will come back and be phenomenal. I think Xavier Worthy's development this year, in this game, he was their only option. Do you bring back Hollywood Brown? Probably not. Again, you probably invest 0 money. You could probably just draft a guy to be your wide receiver 3, or maybe you rely on Justin Watson, or whoever it is, Juju, bring him back. At the end of the day, with Rice healthy, Worthy, Kelsey, Pacheco, you're looking at the 5th option on this team. I think the defense is fine. I just think that the game plan in this game to let Jalen Hurts beat you wasn't the way to go about it. I think they would have been better off just playing the entire game honest and straight up. And maybe they were just out-talented regardless, because maybe then Saquon would have killed them. At the end of the day, the Eagles had an all-star cast on their offense this year, and they're going to continue to. That's, again, part of the reason I think the dynasty is possible. But for Kansas City, draft and invest in offensive line, get Rashee Rice healthy, you have Worthy. Pacheco, I don't even know if he was ever fully healthy, but with a better O-line, you could actually have a run game in a game like this. And at the end of the day, you still have a core of Mahomes, Andy Reid, Spags, Chris Jones, McDuffie, that are all still high-level contributors. Mahomes will make it work with other weapons. I don't have a doubt about that. The Chiefs will be back, but there's some clear problems with this roster in terms of the ability to protect Patrick, and in terms of guys, or in terms of guys able to get open quickly if you can't protect him. I would lean on the side of protecting him and letting Patrick make plays. Because you saw a couple times when he did get protection and the Eagles didn't get home, there were some big plays to Xavier Worthy. And he's a rookie. He'll get better. The Chiefs will be fine. But this was the Eagles' year, without a doubt. So, that's all I got for you guys on this podcast. If you're a returning sub to the channel, you're probably thinking, where the hell did this podcast come from? I just think that this is a more convenient way and a more fun way for me to make content. I was getting a little burned out with the video every single day. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, coming up here for 42 an hour, talking mainly NFL, talking some basketball when we need to, talking some baseball when we need to, and just really talking about the things in sports that I'm passionate about. It's going to be the way that I'm going forward. So, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you made it this far in the video. You obviously liked what you heard. I will catch you guys next time. Peace.